Despite widespread concern among Arlington area residents following a murder of an elderly local woman last January, crime statistics compiled by the Vermont State Police indicate that crime rates today are roughly comparable to those going back at least 17 years. At a public forum held at the East Arlington Federated Church Thursday, September 14th, roughly 50 or so local residents heard local state police officials reassure the public that despite the shocking and unsettling homicide of Helen Jones, 81, a resident of Buck Hill Road, their community was not seeing an upsurge in criminal activity. That said, times have changed, said Lieutenant Thomas Mauser, the recently installed commander of the nearby Shaftesbury Barracks, which patrols the Arlington area. Mauser presented statistics showing that aside from an uptick in arrests in 2012 and 13, when the opioid epidemic was beginning to gather force and law enforcement agencies conducted several wide-ranging sweeps aimed at netting drug traffickers, crime rates across most categories were roughly the same today as they were in 2000. The base year used by Lieutenant Mauser in a PowerPoint presentation he made to the audience. State's Attorney Erica Marthage also updated the crowd on the status of the case involving Timothy Butler, a Sunderland resident who has been charged in connection with the homicide of Helen Jones. If convicted on the first-degree murder charge, Butler faces a minimum of 35 years behind bars. He is also charged with felony burglary. He has pleaded innocent to both charges and is currently incarcerated while awaiting the start of his trial, which Marthage estimated could begin sometime early next year. The case was proceeding at the usual pace for such proceedings, she told the crowd. Marthage also echoed Lieutenant Mauser's suggestion that while the crime rates may be stable, times have changed and it didn't hurt to err on the careful side, noting that she too locked her doors at night.
Can we now go back to where this town once was, and that is, I don't want to say open door, where people had their doors unlocked and so forth. But given the statistics, it doesn't seem like things have changed much from 15 years ago, notwithstanding what happened in January.
So that honestly, your question, Don, I am a fairly pessimistic person at heart, so I lock my door. And I look at it very differently than I did a year ago. Because, after dealing with this case and seeing that offense, even though the numbers haven't gone up, I lock my door now.
And I just want to touch on that, Don. So let's talk about social norms of 2017, social norms of when I grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, and social norms of when you grew up when we were 15 or 16. So long ago, right?
Be honest, Carl.
So the social norms of the 1950s, the 60s, and 70s are completely different from when I grew up. Okay? And the social norms of young people today, 15 to 25-year-olds, are completely different from when I grew up. It's socially acceptable to do things that I would think would be unheard of. But it's socially acceptable for our children to potentially do those things. Whether it be stealing mom or dad's or grandma and grandpa's prescription pills, whether it be driving or taking mom's car without permission. The things that kids do nowadays are not the things that I would ever have thought of doing in 1985, 1987, or 1988. That's just the way it is. So just to touch on your question, yeah, lock your doors.
Why?
Mauser added that checking on your neighbors and being aware of things in general were useful. He also noted that Arlington enjoys an unusual advantage compared to other towns. 11 police officers live in the town, and they are as concerned about the safety and welfare of their community as anyone else, if not more so. Since they drive in and out of the community daily making their rounds, they provide an additional level of protection for the area. There's a tangible benefit to this, said Select Board member Dan Harvey, who was in the audience and spoke following the presentation at the church.
And we had an issue with the budget for the sheriffs increased their hourly rates and so forth. Their costs increased, so they passed that on to the towns. Well, Arlington was faced with the situation that our calendar budget didn't cover their fiscal year budget, and so we had about a 20% increase in their costs mid-year. And rather than increase the budget and overspend the line, we opted to cut the hours by 5 a week from 25 to 20. And by doing that, we were able to sort of overcome the 6-month budget issue by knowing we actually banked on the fact that there's 11 state troopers in town and that they were able to take up the extra slack because this is their community. They take it personal, so to speak, when something happens. So they're here and they're coming and going to and from their shifts and so forth. So they're covering us much more than their hours really show.
Don Keelan, an area resident who, along with Reverend Kathy Clark of the Federated Church, helped organize and host the event, noted in the question and answer period that followed the presentation by the law enforcement officials that even more police officers on the beat could probably yield more arrests, and that not all criminal activity was being detected and suppressed. But overall, things were stable, he said after the meeting.
And the trend seems to be that there really is no trend, and that everything seems to be stable. The amount of incidents as they reported is the same in 2017 total, at about 500 or 600 as it was in 2000. And the mix of incidents, violent crimes versus other things, are about the same. So no, I was very pleased with what we had asked to show the trend. And of course, we understand that the district attorney cannot reveal too much, but she did give us an update and reassured us that things are moving along and that the potential of a trial sometime in March.
For the GNET TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.